So let's start off a little bit with your background. Tell us and the audience how you got here.
Yeah, so first of all, it's great to see everybody and very excited to be alongside this lovely lady, and thank you for hosting us and doing everything today. And so yeah, very quickly about me, I've always came from a intersection of culture and innovation. On one end, I've always loved the idea of where the next big thing is. So like in high school, I would, cut grass so I could buy the first, flip phone that had a color screen, or the iPod, or have a ringtone that when everybody else wasn't able to do that, right? And so always being first, right? And at the exact, I don't know if anybody ever had a sidekick, so that was the hot thing back at the time, right? And so, but always just curious about where the future of the world was going to go. And also at the same time, I started off my career actually as a server. And so when I used to work at Cheesecake Factory in high school and a little bit in college, and so I infused the world of service and culture, and my personal passion was always in music. So I was a music producer and engineer in Atlanta, and I used to work for this guy named Jermaine Dupri. I don't know if you ever heard of him. You've heard of some of his songs. And so that's kind of where my creativity came in. And the one thing that I learned that I still apply to this day is the art it actually comes from music. And it's this idea that that anybody in the world, whether it's playing a piano or using an MPC drum machine, can create something that traditionally 5 minutes before never existed, that now can change the frequencies of the entire world, right? Whether making you dance and making everybody sing a song, and when you hear that "Before I Let Go," everybody, everybody comes on the same frequency, right? And so, but it's this idea of a thought that's coming into a thing. I thought that it was really the most amazing frequency and amazing opportunity that you could ever create until I had this idea to start a company in the restaurant technology space as a server. I was like, this is right when the iPhone started first coming out, and I said, hey, I wonder, everybody eats with their eyes. It was the big epiphany that I learned. It's like, what if you could make it so that anybody, regardless of your technological background, could have their menus on smartphones and tablets with high quality photos of each individual dish. And so I was a music engineer, and me just being oblivious to the world, and I think that's one of the major things that all entrepreneurs and all people have to do, is just not realizing how hard things are. I taught myself how to code and ended up moving to Silicon Valley, and that's where I started my entrepreneurship journey. But really realized that same energy of being a music producer really applied to creating businesses and working in technology. And I kind of call it the modern day alchemy, where now if you think about one person or a group of people can just sit in front of a computer, type some code, and create billions of dollars that now become generated into your bank account. And so, and also while transforming lives as well too. And I think that that's always been how I see the world, and this idea of having a thought and coming to a thing, and also now being in venture capital, having the opportunity to not just create my own ideas, but really listen to where the future of the world is and help support the next generation of people doing the same thing.
I love that. And I want to say to the audience that you're an example of the fact that where you start has nothing to do with where you're going to end up. So when you're at Full Sail learning about engineering, you never for a minute probably thought you'd be working at Andreessen Horowitz.
Never. But I had no idea what venture capital was.
Yeah, how did you get there?
Well, I think in careers, I always, now that I've actually had some tenures, we have this thing that we call an idea maze, which is kind of like when you talk to a founder, or even when you're addressing your own personal career, really trying to understand, like, I started off as a server, then I went to do a startup, and I worked in the music industry, and I came in venture capital, right? So everybody's career has this zigzag of these random occurrences. But then when everyone goes after their real life purpose and their main dream, oftentimes you've gone through these experiences that nobody else has, and so you have what we call an earned secret. And so you know something that nobody else knows about the world in terms of you going after and going to create it. And so, which also leads to this idea around it, that there's something inside of you that you have to bring out into the world, and by following this idea maze and your earned secrets, it really becomes a question that you have to ask yourself, is like, am I going to actually go and put that thing out there in order to do that? In order to do that, and for me, it was really a combination of all of my passions, and being bold, and also, not knowing how hard things will be along the way. I think that's always, I learned that from my fraternity. It's an achievement in every field. And so, but really just kind of having that ability to say, okay, all of that, it now creates into this one moment. And how can I take my experiences, and rather than just having them siloed, bring them all together into something that's bigger than itself. And so, that's pretty much the short story of how venture capital. I mean, I will tell you one funny story. It's that I was like 20 years old. While I was a server, I'd always walk into Starbucks and get my one coffee, and then, because that was literally my first office, and you'd have unlimited refills if you buy a coffee. But I walked in and always felt like I was an owner. And I thought that I was an owner because I had 2 shares of Starbucks at the time. Oh,
that's important.
And so I thought I was an owner in the business. And so, and which was very funny, because those 2 shares, 20 years, still haven't sold them. And, now I learned about compound interest.
Exactly. Compound interest is so important.
I have a couple more since then, but
yeah.
But the thing the experience that I learned was that I wanted to invest into Facebook. And I was like, in college, this was like when Facebook was really becoming a thing. And then, I tried to go on the ticker symbol to try and buy it. I called Schwab. That was my bank at the time. I was like, I'd like to buy Facebook. They're like, there's no way you can buy Facebook. And I said, well,
why?
I use Facebook every day. Why can't I buy it? They said only private investors can purchase it. And that's when I learned that there was a separation in wealth and a separation in investing, and and if I had invested it, my $50 that I probably was going to give them at the time, that would have been a life-changing opportunity. But
and to be clear, you wanted to invest it while it was
still a private company.
Yeah, and you have to be accredited.
Exactly.
And you have to make accredited investor means you have to have a certain amount of wealth or a certain amount of income.
Exactly.
And that's something that I don't like at all.
Exactly.
Because I understand the logic behind it, but its impact is that the people who need the returns the most don't get access to it.
Absolutely.
So that takes us to the next question and the work that you're doing. Can you say what role you're playing for the audience in this incredible fund, Web3 fund? He's leading it, and speak to how you were unlocking pathways for wealth creation for creatives and others.
Well, so there's 2 paths. I think one was just equity, and the second is actually, decentralized ownership, which comes to investing into tokens, and which is really where I believe the next generation of wealth is. When I moved to Silicon Valley, I realized that I've never seen somebody go from a Prius to a PJ. And I was like, I'm so confused. Like, this is really where I thought, I'm from Atlanta, I see Jeezy, I see T.I., I think that's what, that's where the goal is. And then to realize where wealth generation was happening within technology in Silicon Valley, I was like, more people that look like us need to have a seat at that table.
And what's in my head is that not everybody knows what a PJ and the Prius is, so break it down.
Oh, PJ private jet, and a Prius is just a very humble car.
Yeah. Prius. PJ. Was that helpful? That clarification?
Yeah. Okay. So I realized that one, I was the only brother in the room that looked like me, and I realized that when people were thinking about making investments, that they would only think about the people within their networks. And wealth is very transferred within networks, and I wanted to make sure that we could provide access to people that didn't look like the people that open up the doors beyond Silicon Valley. So I created a fund called the Cultural Leadership Fund. It was the first fund in the history of Silicon Valley that brought 100% black LPs, so the world's greatest athletes, entertainers, musicians, senior level executives, all under one investment vehicle. And then all the money that we made from that fund went to a select number of nonprofits that help advance more black people and diverse backgrounds into technology. Because not only is it investing into tech, But some of the people that are making the most generational wealth are actually working inside these companies. You see what's going on with NVIDIA. You see what's happening with Facebook stock and these businesses. But if you're not actually having the opportunity to invest and to have a career into tech outside of investing, then we're missing the largest wealth transfer up until what's happening right now with crypto. And so we did a very large part of opening up the door and demystifying what venture capital and investing into is into. And so we've raised 4 funds since then. It's been really great. And at the exact same time, by being in these rooms and being in the ecosystem, got a chance to learn very early about what was happening within cryptocurrency. And I think that goes to my point around Facebook, which is that this was the only opportunity with, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum. I mean, we all see the prices now and everybody's wondering, oh, it's too late. But at the times, they were pennies, they were $1, they were $100 just to buy a Bitcoin. But as with Facebook, there was limited access because of how the system was set up. With crypto, the problem was the access to the information, and I don't think that and everybody could purchase crypto even today and have access to direct ownership, 0 to 1 with no middleman involved, which is where the next generation of not just wealth but ownership and technology systems are going to be built on top of. And for us, I'm even more honking the horn on how not only just our culture, but everyone in general needs to understand how powerful and transformative this technology will be, not only from a financial standpoint, but from a business and from an ownership. And even think about there's these things called stable coins that, if you have family that's in emerging markets or in different parts of the world that you need to send dollars to, as opposed to using MoneyGram and having 20% of your fees applied to, just through simple blockchain technology will allow instantaneous transfers, direct ownership, which is also very important when you think about creators, when you think about, I could go on and on and on and on and on.
And the notion, first of all, thank you so much. Let the audience know how large are your funds, just so we have context.
Lemonade stands.
Exactly, we have lots of lemonade stands. I will just say we're the largest crypto fund in the entire world. We're also one of the first ones in terms of lots of bees. Let's say, yeah. I mean, technically, yeah. No, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's over $7 billion under management that's publicly assessed. So
$7 billion under management.
Which means that we're very bullish and we very much.
Yeah,
just
they
want
have invested
$7 billion under management.
$7 billion under management.
Well, that's a whole firm. It's a team, very much a team effort, and we have I get a chance to work with the smartest people every day when I'm thinking about this, which is the whole point. Which is why I want to be able to share how important it is to just stay up to speed and to test it too, because a lot of people say I don't understand crypto, I don't know how it works. But the thing is that I've also learned the people who don't know how it works have never tried, and so this is one of the real businesses where you have to actually kind of put some skin in the game. But where it's going.
That's what I was going to say. One, where it's going. How do you for someone who doesn't know and says that stuff it seems like it's over here. Can you make it relatable with examples and stories about something you've done and or what they're likely to see?
Absolutely. So I'm from Atlanta, Georgia, and so the big thing with me is that I always think about any investment or any go-to-market as, can my friends back home understand this? And if they don't, then that means that we, not only from a business standpoint, is it limiting the total addressable market, but from the opportunity standpoint, making it extremely difficult and barriers for people to get in. And so I have a thesis that's called hiding the wires, where if you basically think about, I don't know how everybody got here today, but raise your hand if you used, a Google Maps or an Uber or any type of system, right? Now, when you use that system, you said, I'm going to go to Google Maps, I'm going to figure out how to get here, or I'm going to call Uber and I'm going to figure out how to get here. What you didn't do is think, I'm going to use GPS technology today in order to get here. Now, that's an underlying technology that really applies to every single business that really completely transformed and revolutionized companies like Airbnb, Uber, Lyft, you name it, that companies built on top of. But it was a protocol, that was created that people can now and build everyday businesses on top of. And so that's really what cryptocurrency and blockchain technology is that it is the next GPS technology from a relatability standpoint, where there will be the next generation social networks, the next generation investment platforms, and you name it, media companies.
What about XRP, Chris?
That is a token.
Say what XRP is.
It's called Ripple. It's a financial basically it's a financial institution system where people are basically using it for the next generation finance systems. And so you're seeing a lot of banks and a lot of companies that are adopting the technology and being able to build and buy and sell off of that as well too. And these are brand new. We call them supercomputers in the cloud. So they're all basically mini computers and networks that the next generation Apple will be in Ethereum, or as opposed to just using the internet. Now you're tapping into the Ripple, the XRP, or you're tapping into Ethereum computer systems, and as opposed to them being hardline, they're actually all connected into the internet. Trying to make it's such a complex, crazy system to understand.
What's going forward that you know of with blockchain to help more creatives actually own and have the wealth from their own creation?
So I'll give you a fun example, right? So everyone sees these Basquiat trades that happen, or like a Warhol, or you name it, that when somebody buys it for $100 million, right? The person who gets that money is the person who previously owned it. Not Basquiat and his family in general. I think he passed away before he even saw a piece go over $250,000. And so what you're missing is the middleman that's always taking over the transaction fees. But say, for example, the next generation of artists or the next generation of musicians, that actually you don't even have to sell it on blockchain technology, but what the technology does is that it can encode a 10%, 20% royalty fee that is automatically transferred. And because it's called a wallet, but it's really just like your personal bank account and your account, that will make it so that anytime an artist sells a piece, and so because you know how the art world works, first piece is $1,000, then they become famous, then it becomes $100,000, then it becomes famous again and continue to be more prominent. That piece then goes for $1 million, $10 million. By having that transaction on the chain, on blockchain, and you encode a 10% royalty fee, regardless of who's selling that original artist will always have an automatic 10% that will be, that's encoded into the system, right? And so that's one area. Another area that we don't think about is within our social media accounts, right? Unfortunately, we think that we own our Instagram accounts, our YouTube accounts, but we saw what happened with TikTok a couple months ago when creators were going crazy because at any moment somebody can shut down your account just like that. And you feel like you own your users and you own your followers, but in reality, it's actually the companies themselves that it's through centralized systems. And so the next generation of networks and ecosystems will be allowed that you can take your followers with you. And then it's a 0 to 1 where you're not worried about a middle management fee. I mean, I think Spotify, 0.1% of all artists, less than 50,000 artists, make over $100,000 or more on these platforms.
That's an amazing statistic.
Which is extremely small. So that means 99% of artists, which obviously everyone streams music now, has to have an additional means of income. Through blockchain and through crypto, one of the things, we have this theory, and there's a great article if anyone wants to read it, it's called 1,000 True Fans. And what it means is that instead of having, like you said, around the Supremes, instead of having to sell 1 million records, all you have to do now is actually have 1,000 fans that will do whatever it is that you say, whether they'll buy your t-shirt, they'll go to your concert, they'll support your records, they will fly with you. And because of that, you can have 0 to 1 relationships with every single one of your fans. If they buy your ticket, that it doesn't even have to be labeled as an NFT. We listen to music every day, and they're used MP3s. nobody said they're going to the MP3 conference. They just go to the music conference. Same
go.
thing with NFTs. We have all these technical terms, but soon they're actually going to be hidden, and nobody will even know that you're using blockchain technology. But then now you'll be able to have direct interaction with all of your fans and all of your community. And so now if you can do a push notification that automatically sends directly to someone's wallet, that if they bought your special t-shirt, now you know exactly who that person is and you can reward them with certain gifts. And it really will create a much more holistic and a better economic environment for the next generation of creators.
Right. I love that.
Yes.
That's beautiful. So that you're compounding community
Yes.
as well as income in a
Yes.
way that historically the creators didn't get it.
Yep.
Thank you so much for your time. We're here
Absolutely.
with
Thank you.
the one and
All
only.
right. Thank you guys.